Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Chuck Johnson. This is the Check Drop. We are here. It's the 12th day of October, and we have a special guest this evening, a longtime friend of mine and a longtime Summit Comedy client. So let's get into it. My guest today is the former co-host of BET's Club Comic View, was featured on Kevin Hart's One Mic Stand, Tony Rock's The Funny Spot, has a full-length clean comedy special on Dry Bar Comedy, and just wrapped up season 2 as a cast member on the web series Studio C. Please welcome to the Check Drop, Mr. Comedian Arvin Mitchell. What up, Arvin?
Hey, Chuck, how you doing?
I'm living my best life.
Yeah, in the house.
Well, aren't we all now? We're all
For the most
trapped
part.
in the house.
Yeah.
What is up? So if you're watching this later, Arvin Mitchell, I just said he looks like Indiana Jones. He's got this Indiana Jones. He's living in Utah now, so he's kind of fitting the part.
Well, they don't dress like this out here. I just wasn't proud of my hair, so I put this hat on.
Well, it's good to see you regardless, friend.
Thank you. You too.
Good, man.
I'm glad you're well.
Yeah, man. Well, even if I wasn't, I'm gonna put on this happy face and fool everyone. That's my MO.
It's a lot of that going around.
Right. Yeah, are you happy, man? You look a little sad.
No, I'm not sad.
All right, cool.
I'm cool.
All right.
I'm still indifferent, but I'm cool.
So you just got married recently, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How's the newlywed scenario going?
It's something I shouldn't have did it. I think
Hold on. During this time frame or with her?
her.
Uh-oh.
Like, she in the next room. I'm joking, man.
I was gonna say this all of a sudden turned into a comedy podcast, into a therapy session, and I don't think I'm qualified to handle this conversation. I was about to tap out.
I can't wait to watch
out.
this again. Your face was priceless. You like, wait a minute.
You had me going. I was like, all right, cool. So
that's why I'm an actor.
Yeah,
But
there you go.
it's,
Well, I can't wait to meet her.
She's a sweetheart, Chuck. It's an adjustment though. It is. I was just so used to being single for so long. It was like it's a huge adjustment. But I'm not regretting, marrying her or anything. I'm just learning a lot about myself, and I'm happy to have somebody, not just during COVID.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it's unique, obviously, to get married during this time because you just got married about a month ago. What made you not want to wait until this is over? Was it you looking for a tax deduction or like before the end of the year?
That's a good idea. It was I knew it already, and we were off and on for a while, and because you such a great agent, you kept me working a lot, so I was away a lot on those cruise ships and just doing too much outside the house, not enough in the house, and my relationship was neglected, and she just deserved better than that, so she broke up with me, and that's when I got the call for Studio C. So we were broken up for about 2 years, and I was dating. And man, I was dating this beautiful model who was an empty nester and could cook. And I had to break her heart and let her go because my heart was elsewhere. So I went back. My ex told me, my then wife, I don't know what to call her, but I'm telling the story. So
yeah, I got it.
She was my ex. So she told me, I called her when she first broke up with me. She said, how'd you get my number? Not how'd you get my number? She said, where are you calling me from? I said, I'm calling you from a cruise ship. She said, don't call me from no number. And I said, well, okay. And so I was like, I'm Arvin Mitchell. I'm called. I can get you back. I can say this stuff. And I called
Throw your
her
swagger
again.
out there, the Arvin Mitchell swagger.
Man, the swagger was gone. And she hung up the phone.
You had the lagger.
It sounded like a rhyme. She hit me with a dagger. So her brother called me and he said, and he's a big dude. He said, my sister said, don't call him no more. And I just decided when he said it, don't call her anymore.
It came with a little
So time,
extra exclamation point, like, I got
yeah,
it, got it. All right, that
right,
makes sense.
right.
Yeah,
So anyway, long story short, I was having a, going through it emotionally, the broken heart, feeling all bad. I started putting things together like I was an Einstein or a chemist, an alchemist or something. I said, wait a minute. She said, don't call her no more. She didn't say don't email her. So I
hmm.
shot her the email and she shot me one back. And she said something to my question. And then she said, I think this is a conversation better had over the phone. So I said, when's a good time to call? She was like, whenever you feel free. I called her right away and we stayed on the phone for 4 hours. And that was it. Like that
Nice.
was right before COVID hit. And um
And 17 masks
after
later, you got married.
yeah, I went and got her and brought her from California because they were shutting California down. I had to go get her and bring her home.
Nice. All
That was
right.
it.
Well, let's
Yeah.
shift gears a little bit. That's a beautiful story, sir. Beautiful.
Ah, you asked, man.
Oh, I know, I did, but that's why I had to keep the conversation moving. That's what a good interviewer does, sir. And I want to go back to the roots of your comedy. So you're from St. Louis, Missouri. Is that where you
Yes.
started your comedy career?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I started it in St. Louis. And then I started to venture out with other headliners that saw me, working the circuit, and they started taking me on the road with them. And you know, I was man when I'm funny now, but like when I first started, I didn't know I was ignorantly funny, and you know I could say it that way because the guy who was kind of like my comedy mentor, Kenny Howe, he works with Mike Epps sometimes.
Okay.
He's known for being Kenny Ignat Howell or something like that. I just know ignorant was in it. But yeah, I didn't know boundaries or anything, and a lot of the headliners like me, so they start taking me around with them, and that's how I started working my muscle.
Well, what made you want to pursue stand up? I mean, what age were you when you first started in St. Louis?
In St. Louis, I think I was like 23,
Okay.
about 23 when I started, but I've been loving comedy since I was a child. Like I saw the inside jokes in a lot of things, even in cartoons. Like like Bugs Bunny and Pepe Le Pew, and like they were. I was like, this is. I didn't. I knew it was comedy, but I didn't know it was like adult comedy and some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you go back
so I
and
would
look at
watch.
that now, and some of those things that went over the kids' heads, and like you can go back and watch
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So now it's just blatant. There's no guesswork left for for your mind to do. But yeah, I fell in love with In Living Color and Def Comedy Jam and All in the Family, um, Good Times. I was just anything that could make me laugh. I was like, I didn't know that you could get paid for doing this. That's how ignorant I was. But when you watch the stuff on television, you just think like they just look like they're having fun. You don't know it's a lot that goes behind that. So yeah, man, we used to um, we used to play Make Me Laugh in my household. So if you can make your brothers and sisters laugh, then everybody else should be easy.
Right. Yeah.
You ever played that?
No, it was Make Me Cry. That was usually my.
Make me cry
It's a whole different game.
with a belt.
Usually.
This
Yep.
is your microphone.
All right. So, do you remember the very
Shut
first time?
up.
Okay. Whoa. You all
This
right?
is the dog,
All right.
lady.
Do you remember the first time you stepped foot on a stage? And do you remember the name of the venue?
Yes, the first time I got on stage, I want to say it was it was the Funny Bone.
Okay.
No,
Is
it
that
was
the
the Funny Bone.
Westport? Is that the wasn't it the
The
Westport?
Westport. Yep,
Okay.
that's
All right.
where Dave Carlo was the manager.
Right. Down kind of near
So
the casino. There's a casino down there, I think, right?
it's a casino quite a ways away
Okay.
from
All right.
that Funny Bone. But anyway, I entered a comedy competition and I didn't know it was a competition. It wasn't a competition. It was an audition to be on something. and it was my first time doing comedy, and I signed up for it, and they put me up first because I wasn't a home comic and they didn't know me,
Okay.
but I still killed it, and I surprised myself. So a lot of people they were asking me how long I had been doing comedy. I was like, "This is my first time." And they were like, "No way!" I was like, "Yeah." So after that, they started inviting me to the club, and I started, being able to work out more. But I didn't know about bringer shows, and
Yeah.
I don't like bringer shows. It wasn't. I
Nobody
don't feel
does.
like that's. Yeah, it's not fair to people who driving, 30, 45 minutes away for you to bring 100 people. But I also understand the business side of it. They got to sell drinks and stuff
Right.
like that. So
If you're not in the industry, a bringer show is basically, hey, we'll let you do some time, but you can only if you bring X amount of people, like 10, 20 people. So you're like bugging the shit out of your family and your friends constantly. It's always good that first time, but then like, hey, I got another show next week, and you're like, nah, I don't want to go again. So
yeah,
it's harder to keep bringing new people to your event. So
is it?
yeah,
It's even harder if you suck. Because like I've seen some guys do bringer shows and they bring out the most people, but they're the worst comics. And
yeah,
then when all those people that came from seeing them being the greatest promoter on the planet, but the worst comedian they ever seen, it can turn pretty bad. And the flip side to that is when that person leaves, whether they do good or bad, they take the audience with them. So now
right,
the room's empty.
yeah.
So if you're
Well,
watching
yeah,
and you want to do stand up, stay away from bringer shows if you can help it,
yeah.
unless they're your own bringer shows.
There's a ton of comedians I can think of off the top of my head right now that are amazing marketers, but shitty comics. so
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so that is definitely a thing. So yeah. So did you have? I mean, obviously you said you did well your very first time. Did you like go home and practice in a mirror, or like what was your? Do you remember any of your first bits that you did?
Yeah, I remember one of them that I first did. I didn't practice in the mirror. I just wrote it down a bunch of times because that's how I used to learn and study for tests. Um, I I was working at this place called Sam's Membership Club, and you know what Sam's is, don't you,
Yeah,
Chuck?
yeah, like Costco.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I was working there, and I would practice the jokes on the guys in the break room because they seemed to like me, and we were just hanging out, and the girls too. And I I wouldn't say it like it was a joke. I'd work it into a conversation, right? So one day, and I don't know if this was a joke at the time or not, but I just remember having this conversation because there was a guy. I remember what he looked like, but I don't remember his name. He's like, he's so fascinated with spaceships, and he just wouldn't shut up about these spaceships. And they were coming on the news a lot back then. These sightings and stuff. And I said, the thing that kind of tripped me out about these spaceship sightings, the alien sightings and stuff is they always going in crops. They go in cornfields and stuff. How come they don't? Oh, how come they don't go in the city? And the guy turned around immediately, like he knows everything there is to know about it. He goes, "It's obvious they're scared of the city lights." And I said, "They're scared of the city blacks." and, and this girl that was she was sitting by the coffee pot. She fell off the counter laughing, and they were like, "You should do comedy. You should do comedy." And I took that premise and wrote a joke about aliens coming in the city. And I said, aliens couldn't come in the city. They always go to the county because it's safe and it's spacious, and there's not a lot of activity going on. But if they crashed up in a black person's apartment, they couldn't just crash and leave. A black mother would tell them, "Now you're not just about to crash up in my apartment. You gonna move around some of this furniture." But I was using like space words or whatever. Like, you gonna zap around some of this furniture. No, and you gonna like I said, you gonna zap me up a couple of $1 million, and then you gonna beam your ass up out of here. So it was pretty cleverly written. I just got tired of doing it.
yeah.
That's surprising as long as I've been doing all my material.
Now you're a
But
pretty animated comedian. Then you move around the stage a lot, make a lot of facial expressions and impressions, etc. Were you that way out of the gate? Did you kind of go into it just that way, or is that just kind of your natural personality? Like, this is the way I want to perceive my stand up into that world, because you're definitely one of those great high energy comedians that you never know what you're gonna do, and you're just always moving around. So I think that helps
Thank
sell
you.
the joke for you.
Well, it was never like a strategy. I never even really thought about it. I was just like, as I tell this story, what's the best way to paint this picture? Like
Okay.
if if people, you know, doing stand up for so long, I've experienced so many different types of audiences. I've had people sitting. This one guy was sitting in the audience with some headphones on, and I go, dude, why would you come to a comedy show and leave your headphones on? And his mother yells out, he's autistic, you know. And then there's another time, there's a guy waiting after the show. I'm going, why are you waiting for me? You sat through the whole show and you didn't laugh one time. He goes, I'm deaf, but I was reading your lips and I was laughing inside. You know what I mean? So having instances like that, and these families that wait on you after the show to explain why this person was blurting out something. They might have one of my castmates. He has Tourette's,
Okay.
and he saw me. Check this out, Chuck. He saw me at Dry Bar Comedy when I did the special, and now he's my castmate. And he was on a
That's weird.
date the night that I recorded, and he said I helped him have a good night. That's what he said. But it wasn't like a sexual thing. He's a virgin. He's like a 30-year-old virgin, man. He's a miracle. But anyway, it's stuff like that why I feel like I have to be so animated and zany, because I'm painting a picture for people who may only get it on the very surface level. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's fun for me to express it that way.
Wow. When you started out, did you have like a circle of comedy friends that you kind of had a click with, or you just kind of like did it on your own?
I was by myself. It was my sister inspired me to do comedy. I was working at Sam's Membership Club, and I would come home tired, or I'd say something. She goes, "I don't know why you're working that dumb job anyway. You should be doing comedy. That's all you should be doing." And I said I didn't know how to get into it, and she said, I'll support you in whatever way I can. And she let me live with her until I start getting on my feet and getting booked. And it was just my family and I didn't. I started being friends with other comics, but like a lot of times they would. And I'm not. When I say this, whoever's watching, don't take offense. Like I think I'm better than them. It just wasn't my thing. They would hang out and they would smoke weed after the club and drink, and it just wasn't my thing. So I was trying to get back home, and I would go over my set with my sister again and again, and she'd tell me like, you should take that out. That's too mean, or stuff like. She was kind of like, because she's such a big fan of comedy, she was kind of like managing me and coaching me at the same time. Because I think as a comic, you need somebody, like you just asked me, like, did you have some friends or whatever? Like everybody needs at least one person that they can kind of like talk shop with,
Yeah, like a
because
comedy
that's the only way.
mentor. I feel
Yeah,
like, yeah, you should always have somebody, that you can ask questions and find somebody that you can trust as well, because
yeah,
I'm sure there's that competition factor, that people giving you bad
man,
advice, and you're like, they're not, because they don't want you to get up to that level where they are, because it's a little bit of a pecking order, right? Like some are great
dude.
and like they want to help you out as much as possible, and down the road they'll put you in projects they're working on, but others are like, nah, they want to put their foot on your head and keep you down as far as you can. So
Speaking of that, so I end up becoming friends with some comics, and everything you just said to the T. Like they, I heard comics who didn't have that insecurity telling me they knew I was next. I also had, excuse me, comics trying to sabotage me when I was in the comedy competition with Lil JJ on BET Comic View. That was like my television debut. The guy that was mentoring me, Kenny Howe, was telling me, like, I was telling him I was frustrated. This thing wasn't going right. I'm starting to see some things, but I was still happy to just be getting the opportunity to be on television. Come to
right.
find out, he knew the my biggest competition's manager, and he was telling me they were sending him jokes, and like like, dude, if you know this stuff about what's going on behind the scenes, help me out, but you
Yeah.
can't expect people to help you. Like you said, if there's a pecking order and you surpass them, which I did end up doing to, with some guys that were from my hometown who were doing comedy long before me, and it just you can't get help from people you're in competition with,
Yeah. Comedy
So
is weird that way. Like, it's definitely one of those businesses that you're your own boss, right? So you're trying to just kind of, but you're also I guess, your own beacon of light for your own career. I mean, there's people that can help you and such, but a lot of times, a lot of it's on your own. I mean, up until you get to that little bit of a star quality level where you get, say, management or agents that kind of bring you up to that next level. But I mean, most people don't ever get to that level where they have anybody working for them. I mean, most comedians
yeah,
are all on their own and such. So yeah, it's a tough business. Like,
yeah.
everybody always sees
And-
the great things about this business, when you're doing it like on stage and or whatever, and then there's times like this where it's a little bit like, oh, all right, we come to a grinding halt. so
yeah,
so
like never before.
yeah. So let's talk about your. Would you? I mean, I'm safe to say that maybe this is your first big break when you got the Club Comic View that kind of put you on the map. I'd say, as far, because a lot of people still
Yeah,
know you from that, just even today. I mean, somebody even in the
yeah.
chat mentioned earlier. What was he on? He looks familiar. So yeah, so things like that. I think a lot of people, like, I was still surprised, even, still going to like college conferences and such, and people are like, oh, I used to watch you on Club Comic View. So
Yeah. That Comic View, I think, yeah, Club. Really, it was coming to the stage that was my big like television debut because that was a family show and I was in competition with a kid. It was called Coming to the Stage, and Lil JJ was the winner, and I was the first runner up. But that show, I don't care. Nothing can happen to me from saying this. It was so rigged, Chuck. It was crazy how
yeah,
rigged it was, and
I
and
remember
when I
that. I
did the
remember
come,
that they had that spotlight on that young kid that could tell jokes, and I think his path was already paved. I actually just looked
yeah.
him up not too long ago to see what he's doing. I think he's in college now. I think he got out of the
Yeah,
business and he went to
yeah,
school. So
yeah.
yeah,
I saw him walking down the street at a festival in LA a couple of years ago, and we exchanged numbers and talked briefly or whatever. But it was a marketing strategy, and I was glad to be a part of it,
yeah,
But yeah. So I went from being in the competition with Lil JJ, Denny Live, and a couple other guys, and into being the bartender, into being a bartender on BET's Comic View and the co-host, and that really got my name on the map. And I got a lot of auditions for some movies when I moved out to LA, and then I was featured on Comic View a couple of more times. I got to host Spring Bling 21 Questions on BET, and Tony Rock's The Funny Spot. I got to be featured on that and work with Kim Wigley. And it just really gave me a buzz that helped me when I was out there on the circuit, even doing the cruise ships and everything. Like, but I never did a lot of clubs. It wasn't until, like this weekend, like it's not like I've never been in a comedy club before. That's where I started. But after Comic View, I did a few clubs, and then you met my cousin Tracy, who was managing me, and then you and I linked up, and it was just colleges and cruise ships from there.
yeah.
So yeah, I've been
Yeah,
on quite a few
I
things, but
discussed that a lot last week on the podcast about just that. Like, you have to get your roots in the clubs to earn your comedy
mhm,
stripes and just learn how to be a comedian. But unfortunately, that's the worst monetary, I guess, rung on the ladder. I mean, they don't pay shit. I mean, and we just talked about
they
the
don't.
bringer shows where you don't get paid, you have to still bring people. So it's just, yeah,
Yeah,
once you can put some clubs in your rear view mirror, there's a lot more opportunities for financial rewards on the back end with other corporates, colleges, etc. So yeah, so I was glad that I kind of took you under my wing to help you do that. So
yeah. It was fun, and it was great training ground. And now that I had the opportunity to work my comedic muscle on the cruise ships, and with so many clean shows under my belt, now that I'm back to doing a few clubs now, it's got that muscle up to where I'm just as funny clean as I was dirty. And man,
Okay.
that feels good to be able to do in the club.
Yeah, you just
It, I
worked
mean,
Wise Guys in Ogden, right, Utah, this past
yeah,
weekend. That's yeah.
yeah.
So
Friday and
were
Saturday
the
sold
crowds
out.
sold out? Nice. Were they at 50% capacity, or are they just full out? Like, hey, we're there's no COVID around.
Nah, it didn't. It didn't. It looked like it was more than 50% capacity, but
Okay.
it was COVID sold out.
Okay.
So it
Got it.
wasn't like standing room only and stuff like that. But people came to the door, and I I felt so good, Chuck, to hear this lady take. She took her boyfriend or her husband's hand and turned around. She said, "They're sold out," and I'm like, "Yeah, for me, they sold out for me."
That's
But
awesome.
I gotta find a club up here. I gotta find a room to make my own to where I get the door. Because
Yeah.
if I can do bringer shows, that's how I started doing the Blueberry Hill in St. Louis. When I found out what bringer shows were, and they told me that was the only way I was gonna get on stage, I was like, "Who the hell you think you talking to? Like you
Yeah.
are pimp telling me you got the only girl in town." I'm like, "Nah, there's a lot of girls out here."
Yeah.
So I found the Blueberry Hill, which is a Chuck Berry. Well, there's a guy named Joe Edwards in St. Louis who has his own everything. Like this guy owns the whole community almost, pretty much. Anyway, he has a club called the Blueberry Hill. It's an eatery, but they have a in the basement. They have all these pictures of ducks. Howard the Duck, Donald Duck, Daffy Duck, Scrooge McDuck, any duck you can think of. That he collects these little figurines, put them in glass cases. If you ever get to go, you'll love it. So I went there hanging out with this dude I didn't even like. I forgot I told him we'd hang out this night, but he was a pest. So I go to hang out with him, and it was my introduction to the duck room. They call it the duck room because all the ducks were down there. But well, that's a whole nother part of the story. Anyway, they call it the duck room. They call it the duck room because Chuck Berry was Joe Edwards' best friend, and he used to do the duck walk on the stage down there. So you know what the duck walk is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so when he showed me that room and I got down there, I was like, this is the perfect place for me to do my shows. And I started producing shows there, and it seat like 100 people. And Nellie's aunt, she came with me to see it because she told me she'd sponsor me. But when she saw how many people I packed in there, she pulled me to the side and she said, "I know I told you I was gonna sponsor you, but you got enough people. You don't need my help. You just need to raise your price." And I was like, "Gee, thanks." But I'm glad she gave me that little bit of help because I was charging $5 a show, and I took it from $5 to 15 in advance and 20 at the door. So she gave me enough when she gave me that. That was sponsorship,
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, that's
I would
that's
never.
that's the business, right? You live and you learn, and you figure out how to adapt and make it work. Like even what we're doing now, switching to
Yeah,
virtual shows and such. I mean, we're everybody's pivoting and making it work. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's
yeah.
crazy. So I remember. I know you know the story. For those watching and or listening later, that how I got Arvin as a client is a good story. We don't have to say names, but we can tell the story. So I was interested in Arvin, and I can't remember if I had talked to you first or you had talked to me first. But long story short is I submitted you. Well, you gave me a green light and said, "I'm with you, Chuck. Let's go forward." And I was submitting you to a NACA conference. And
Mhm.
the next thing I know, I got a call from the NACA office and said, the agent that used to represent Arvin is not releasing Arvin. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? There's no contracts. Like, so, and then you got into a little turf war, right?
Yeah, man. Well,
That
he
was,
was stealing money. I was kicking myself in the butt for taking so long to discover that he was stealing money. And yeah, man, I would see him at conferences even after that happened. He'd still like smile at me and, "Hey, how things going for you?" And I'm like, "Dude, why are you even looking in my direction?"
yeah,
But I just, I play nice and everything. But yeah, it's a lot of underhanded guys out there. So you got to read your contracts and work with good people.
Yeah,
So
this business is it has the reputation of not the nicest individuals at times, but there are a lot of
yeah,
amazing people in this business too. So I just kind of choose who I work with wisely, I guess. And Arvin, yeah, I mean, just to pat yourself on the back, you've been one of my best finds I've ever found in the 22 years of my business. No complaints. I mean, I can't remember any bad reviews, really. I'm sure
well,
you've had a
thank you.
couple,
Not
but
really. I've had a few.
I mean, I've booked you thousands of places. I mean, you were one of those few that I could
Yeah,
book. I've booked you everywhere from Guam to Europe, and then on cruise ships all throughout the Caribbean and every college in the country and corporate events. And yeah,
yeah.
I mean, so you've been a star in my roster. So
Thank you, Chuck.
that's the that's
Yeah,
my nice thing.
it's
I'll say some bad things about you later, but that's off screen.
I can take it.
I'm
I'm just
kidding.
look. I'm glad to have had that much work over the years because had I not, I don't know what I would do or what position I would be in when this hit. I mean, I don't think we were 2 weeks into COVID before people start calling me for money. I'm like, dude, I tell jokes, okay? I don't sell cars and houses. I tell jokes, and I have a family. So
Yeah,
you got the wrong number,
yeah,
pretty much.
yeah. And then yeah. So let's talk about the Studio C. So 2 years ago, I got you an audition for a show called Studio C, which is a web series similar to, I guess, Saturday Night Live for children. I guess if that's a good way to explain it.
I would say family.
Tweens or family.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. It's not over the top laughable, laugh out loud funny, but it's definitely clean and it's filmed by a Mormon based company out in Utah but they've got over like 2 billion views of all these videos. But Arvin's
yeah.
been a cast member for the last 2 years. And it's been
And
again about a new comedy muscle, trying to flex that and still be able to work weekends doing stand up on the road and then flying back to do your full time gig. I'm sure that's been kind of a crazy ride the last 2 years.
it's been a relief not to have to travel, but um, more than anything, just kind of learning sketch comedy has it's been great and stressful at the same time because I went from being able to say whatever's on my mind the way that I think of it and literally generating an instant laugh from people to my jokes being ran through a process and other people saying why this might not work in this kind of comedy. And that was a hard pill to swallow, especially when I've been doing comedy longer than probably some of my castmates been alive. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
yeah, so it probably goes back to what we were just talking about. Like you're your own boss, right? I mean, you've been your own boss
yep,
for so long. So now you go work for a corporate entity that, you're a team player now that you're with what, 9 other cast members or whatever. And,
yeah,
now your workload that where you're focused 100% on yourself typically, now you're down to 10%, and everybody's trying to wedge their way in some way, shape, or form as much as possible to keep that creative outlet going, I'm assuming. So
it
yeah.
was a shock to my system, Chuck, for somebody who went from to be told from somebody who used to bust tables that I'm not doing something right regarding comedy. And that's not to say anything mean towards anybody. It's just that I've been doing this for over 20 years and getting standing ovations and everything. But again, it's a different muscle. That's like me knowing about comedy, but still just try to jump out of my world and start trying to book other comedians like you do. That's not my thing.
Right.
So I had to unlearn some things and just take myself out of the equation as much. And that was hard for me to do. But as much as I can attribute so much credit to various people regarding me learning sketch comedy, like it's not like I never knew what sketch comedy was. I had just never did it.
Right.
But then there's the age difference. You know, my none of my only one of my castmates had ever seen In Living Color versus the others predominantly watching Monty Python, which I do not think is funny. You know, so there's comedy is so subjective, and it doesn't make a person right or wrong because they might not laugh or they might laugh at something else. It's just that that's a really, I think comedy is kind of like algebra, but you have to make it seem like basic math, you
Yeah.
know, when it comes to the laugh. But man, it's been a gift and a curse. It's been and more actually. Last year was more of a of a gift. I'll say last year was more of a curse, but this year is more of a gift because I learned so much.
Yeah.
Like I can walk away from here saying I know these things as far as comedy is concerned, but as fun as it is to dress up as a character, now I'm able to do voiceovers. I did the voiceover for Scooby Doo and quite a few other characters in the sketches, but to me, nothing will ever compare to stand up. There's something about being able to make a room full of people laugh right away, no matter what just happened on the other side of the wall. It really feels like a superpower.
Yeah, it's infectious, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
it
know what's
is. I
yeah,
mean,
it's funny too because like even for me on this side, being on the business side of the business of comedy, it's I don't laugh a lot when I go to comedy shows. I mean, just because I've
mm,
become immune to it. I do know when things are funny, but it's just unfortunately that's just a drawback of the job because you'll see a premise coming and you're like, all right, well I know what's coming or whatever, and I just don't laugh that often. So when I do laugh, I just really know when it's a really great comedian. But I'm also able to not laugh and go, well, that guy's funny, and just say it just like that. But
yeah,
talk about the infectiousness. The infectiousness also goes on my side too. When I see yourself up on a stage, like you did my venue in Concord, North Carolina last year,
mm,
and just watching you, you're like one of my kids, right? I kind of look at you like that, and you're just like making everybody just laugh, and I'm not laughing because I've seen that joke of yours maybe before, but
mm,
I'm looking at the crowd, and that was my like rush. Like your rush is the
yeah,
adrenaline of hearing that laughter, but it's also for me as well. It's like once removed, right? It's like all right, because I had my finger
yeah,
on this, right? So that's
yeah,
so that's part of this as well. I love what I do, and my wife always says I'll never retire just for that reason as well. So it's a pretty cool gig. So
well, it's healthy for you too. You know, I
yeah,
mean, I think that's the reason why I like being friends with comics because even if I'm not on the show and I have the capacity to go support, it's like you like seeing somebody win too. Like you said, I have my finger on it. Like I'm a part of this,
right.
and it all feels it's like a vitamin almost. You know, so I just when I'm on such a high, and I think that's probably what Mitch Hedberg struggled with. Like that when that high, you don't want that high to go away. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like when you get off stage and you're so high off making perfect strangers laugh, you want that high. You want to feel that again.
yeah. So
You
he
know,
switched
and
to drugs instead of waiting the 22 hours before he can go back up on stage again. So
I
yeah,
possibly.
yeah,
I'm not saying
maybe.
that for sure.
I know. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure it could be some demons and stuff that we don't know about either. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, so I definitely understand that aspect of, and I've seen it from so many comedians because I think every comedian has that. Like, hey, can I get back on stage again? And especially now during COVID, you just see people just
oh
going
man,
nuts and like, I got to get back on
Chuck,
stage. Got to get back on stage.
it was
So
it was a gift when you called me and told me about Wise Guys. And you know what? I meant to tell you this when we talked this morning. When you were like, "We'll talk later." They tipped me. They
nice. Well, they
don't.
should have. They didn't
That's
pay you well
not.
enough.
Yeah, you telling me?
I get it. Now that they have summer money and now it's COVID money. Okay, got it. All right. But,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, beggars can't be
yeah,
choosers at this point in time. But yeah, well, they should have. So I'm glad they did. So
yeah.
yeah.
Thanks. It
Yeah.
it, it
You know
was
what?
it.
I'm not even going to take commission on that. You can keep that all to yourself.
I gotta write that down. You take commission off tips.
Hey, you don't think the IRS does when you go look at your W-9 when you write down your tips? They take taxes on that. Come on. I'm Mr. Nice Guy. You're
Oh, that's
welcome, sir.
funny.
You're welcome. I'm better than the
You,
IRS.
it was that's the worst go-to. That's like this girl, a friend of mine called me about a gig the other day, and she said, she asked me how much I charge and everything, and I said, well, usually, you got to go through my agent. She said, well, you from St. Louis, so I just wanted to go directly through you. And she said, how much you charge? And I told her what my price was. She said, well, I mean, it's around Thanksgiving and you have to see your family anyway. I mean, life is short. I
What?
said, you're the worst negotiator.
Life is short.
Life is short.
I've
I
got
couldn't believe she said
$17 in a Tic Tac. Wait, come on. You can do my gig.
it. Life is short. That was priceless.
Yeah.
So I wasn't blown away by the amount. It was just a gesture that she said, we gave
Yeah.
you a tip. And I'm like, this whole check is usually Chuck's commission. So I was looking at that check and I was going, I should say, well, I'm not being mean, but it's just making it relative.
Yeah.
I was like, this is why Chuck never wanted me to do clubs. Remember when I called you a
Yeah.
couple of times? I'm like, Chuck, I need to do some clubs, and you're like, no, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, most comedians, it's the craziest thing that if you're out there and you don't know this, but the club money so I started in '95 in this business. The club money has not changed. Like you
No
still
way.
typically get what you would get in 1995 to headline a week at a comedy club in 2020. And it's just bananas.
Wow.
So the club,
Wait
it's
a minute.
really tough to make.
So wait a minute. When you got comics like what about comics like Bill Burr and
That's
Chris Rock?
different. Those are different. I mean, those are
Okay.
guys that are
Okay.
working high percentage door deals. But if you do not have a name for yourself and you are not a draw, say you go into the Chuckle Hut in Topeka or whatever, and you are going in there, you are not making any more money today than you were making probably in 1995, and that's a fact. I mean, I'm sure comedians will start putting in the chat. Well, here you go. Hank Denson. Unless you have a door deal, it has not changed. That is absolutely a fact. If you don't have a door deal, if you don't
Shouts
have
out to Hank.
yeah, Hank's a
Go
good
ahead.
dude. It just hasn't changed, unfortunately. And I've tried I don't book a lot of clubs. So, but when they do come about, I try to get the comedians the money that they're worth. And unfortunately, there's a lot of comedy agencies that swoop in and just undercut and just keep that supply demand line just hovering around the 1995 rate. And that's why I
so
got out of the
sad.
club market. I used to book a ton of like one nighters and such back in the day, and I just don't like it. I mean, unless it's really good people. Just before COVID hit, I had a club in Waco, Texas, and I met the guy in Texas, and I said, I have to meet you before I start working with you. Make sure you're like on the level and a good dude, and you're going to take care of these comedians, because there's so many clubs that don't give a shit about the talent. They're just worried about that bottom line. And this couple was just amazing. And unfortunately for them, the COVID hit right after, like 2 months after they got up and running. So hopefully they'll bounce back. But the club market is just horrible. So, and
Wow.
I scream from the mountaintops if you are a club owner out there to pay the comedians what they're worth. You know what you're paying your comics, and take care of them. So I know times are tough, but yeah,
They're
there's my
not that
soapbox.
tough.
There's my
But
soapbox.
the thing about that is, like, it's kind of like everybody should understand, like, the golden rule. The whole, do unto others and one hand wash the other. Like, dude, if you keep taking care of me, that's why we've been doing business so well together, because it's fair, But that's robbery to know that they can upsell everybody else. There's a 2 drink minimum or 2 item minimum, and then you pack the club out. You made the rent. You made
Right.
your profit. You're gonna send this dude home with crumbs, and he got a
Yeah.
family.
They got sponsorship deals with like Bud Light and such or whatever. There's so many ways to make money, but yet the talent is always the I think the last person to reap the benefits of that sold out show, I guess. So
They should call it.
so I'm glad
They
Wise
should call
Guys
it.
at least tipped you and took care of you. So that was a nice gesture.
Yeah. Hats off to them.
Yeah. So
They should
right,
call it business show instead of show business.
Well, let's shift gears again. So all right. So I'm just trying to think of all the places I have booked you. I mentioned like Guam and such. Another one that comes up. One of my favorite places that I booked you for. I got to go with you, and that was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We had booked the Navy base there, and I somehow convinced the Navy to use our tax dollars to fly me down there as well, because I was a Navy brat and I actually lived in Guantanamo for my 3rd and 4th grade. So I said, I've got to go back to go check it out. And that was just one of those, it was me, you, Jesse Campbell, and Chris Killian. And it was just one of those just great, like, I think it was 3 or 4 days we went down there and had a blast. So.
Yeah, it was great for a while. Which one of those idiots asked how many detainees they had?
Hey,
which one?
That's a whole different story.
Okay. It's still a part of the story.
That was me, the idiot. So.
You really? That was you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I thought it was a comic.
No, the story is that apparently you weren't allowed to even discuss the detention center that is in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. They clearly know it's there. You can see it from Google, but we got debriefed upon entering the country that no comedian was to mention it on stage nor off stage. No mention of waterboarding or talking about the president. Obama was there at the time. The president, not in Guantanamo, but so yeah. Long story short, there was a soldier, and a lot of the soldiers I would just ask, "Hey, what do you do for on the base for your job?" Because everybody has a job, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, I put up power lines or do this," and I finally got a guy that said, "Well, I work at the detention center. I'm on the front lines of guarding," and then. He had too many beers, and then he started telling too much. You know the old saying, loose lips sink ships? That guy had some loose lips, and he got in big-ass trouble, and then we thought we were going to get in trouble, and it was we quickly left the evening and feared for our life, and I thought my phones were tapped for 2 weeks after. I swear to God. I was convinced that my phone was tapped. So.
Chuck, when we left, the whole vibe changed from the boat ride to when the plane was in the air. We circled the island for an hour almost, and the pilot kept flipping pages in the manual. I was like, this is how I'm dying? This is it, God? I mean,
yeah, it turns out the landing gear wasn't going back up, so we had to turn back around and go switch planes. So yeah, that was.
Dude, I was so scared. I couldn't wait to get back to Miami. But dude, that should be in like some kind of story chronicle or something. But I thought it was one of the other comics. That's probably why I never knew which comic it was.
Chris Killian was with me at the time, but yeah, I think I was kind of prodding the soldier at the time.
I didn't know who to be mad at. Now I know.
I guess it's me then.
But anyway, it was fun. I got paid to make the troops laugh. And,
yeah, that was the best. There's 4,000 soldiers on the base, and 1,000 of them showed up. I believe that was the numbers, whatever. And that was just, yeah. And I've asked so many times to go back, and my emails are unresponsed.
I wonder why.
You're like, we let you go. You're not in jail. It's okay, but you can't come back. I think that's how that worked out. So yeah, but
you know what?
I booked you on some other ones. You got to go to Oktoberfest in Germany.
That was so fun. Germany was
Andrew
one of my
Slater.
favorite. Yeah, Andrew was nice. He's the nicest guy. I still got pictures of him in my old camera. I got to give to him. But that such and such Ben.
Yeah, there's a.
I thought he was gonna get killed or fall down a hole or get his head chopped off. This dude was doing the dumbest stuff. He almost, Chuck, I'm gonna be honest with you, I almost picked a fight with Ben just so I can beat him up. Because
you don't have to say his last name. We don't want to get him in trouble. That was the third comedian that was on the bill. But yeah.
I won't say his last name, but he needed a haircut, and I brought my clippers. I was gonna cut a plug in his head just to piss him off to make him want to fight, so I could beat him up. That's how much I hated him. by the end of the tour. This fool, we were on Amy Winehouse's tour bus, and he got a girl. I was happy for him, do your thing. But he was farting on the bus. And that's just man code. You don't do that around another man respectfully. And that's why I really wanted to see his nose crooked. Like, I was like, I should, but we're overseas. And if we were in another city in America, I would have beat the living snot out of him. And I'm proud of myself for not doing that and for not cussing. Only cussing one time during this whole thing because I have to keep my brand clean because of Studio C.
No, I like it. Good job, man.
I like
it. I've taught you well.
Meanwhile, you're cussing up a storm.
Yeah, well, I can say
like it's my show.
Yeah, I think I started off like squeaky clean, but you know what? This is how I talk around my friends. So I don't hide anything. I'm an open book, So
I'm fine with that. But I just think it's so funny that before I go on stage at the conference, you like, clean equals green. Every time you swear, you're popping a bubble. You're popping a balloon. That's money going away from us.
100% accurate. 100% accurate. This podcast isn't making either one of us money, so we can say what we want. So, I do want to go back though. Earlier in the chat, I see Chris Schuler. I'm gonna give a shout out to Chris Schuler. He goes, "Please screenshot this one, Chuck, for Arvin's new headshot." Arvin used to have a really hard time of getting me promotional materials. Like, dude, can you get this headshot is 12 years old? Can you please give me a new one? And then at one time, I think Melissa Beer created a weight loss program, like who would lose the most weight before Arvin created a new headshot.
What? For real?
Did I not tell you that?
Oh, that's cold.
It's true though. It is 100% true.
Touche.
Yeah, and then he gave me 3 new headshots, and that was about 7 or 8 years ago. So I'm still waiting for new ones. It's maybe
I just did a photo shoot last week.
Well, send them my way. So
I will.
We're gonna need some new headshots. We got to get you some more work now. So
you telling me?
So what is the? Out of all the things you've done in your career, and whether it's something I booked or anything else, what is the zenith so far in your career? What's the best gig that you go to and go, that was my favorite gig thus far in my career? Do you have that?
I actually got more than one, but
you can
at the top of my list. At the top of my list is Africa. When you sent me to Africa. When this was the same tour we were just talking about, and it's just because I had it written down on my I hate to say bucket list, but it was just it was an aspiration of mine to get paid to go to Africa to do comedy, and I went so hard. Now I don't remember. I know Andrew was on the show, and Ben was too. And didn't we have a girl with us?
Was it Jesse?
I don't know. No, yeah, Jesse was with us. So whatever the lineup was, we all had decided because we were doing this tour that we would rotate. So when we got to Africa, the crowd was predominantly minority, and they were a little edgy. I won't say they were predominantly minority. They were just, it wasn't my turn to headline, and I ended up having the headline because whoever's turn it was to headline was afraid. And I went so hard, Chuck, I ripped my pants, like the crouch in my pants. I split my pants and I kept going until I was done. I was sweating and I killed the show. And I remember when my now wife and we were going through it, and you called me back and said, Africa wants you back. And I said, I can't do it. You remember that?
I don't remember that part.
Well, I hated turning it down. Well, because I don't know if it was the same lady who booked the tour or whatever, but they wanted me to come back to Africa, and I was going through counseling and everything with my wife, and I couldn't go back, and I will never really forget that. So it was that was it for me, and I guess you could say Studio C for a whole nother reason, like not just learning a new muscle in comedy, but like I got this gig, and it's like it's the closest thing that being cast in a sitcom, and I'm getting paid to learn. Some of my castmates get to shadow the directors and get to
Yeah.
learn another new skill and everything. And I'm hoping I have the opportunity to take advantage of that too, and to have a job during COVID that I don't have to go out and kind of we don't have to go pitch for work. Like I worked through a pandemic, and right now you know what we're waiting on, to hear if I get
Yeah. He's
hired
on
for another season or whatever.
hiatus currently. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm still working, right? So I had to go in today to do a voiceover, and it's just eerie sitting around castmates not knowing if we're all coming back, but we're still working. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, I
So
mean, the good news
it's
about you, as opposed to them, that we can probably still find you some work, whether it's live at a reduced capacity or virtually. So I booked you for some
mhm.
virtual colleges, and do you like doing those? Did you like the virtual comedy for the
I
colleges?
mean, I love them. You can't be late. I'm not getting stuck in traffic. But yeah,
Well, you
I
can be
just
late if you
I'm
don't have the right time zone or whatever. I guess
yeah.
there's
Well,
that.
that's why I always check.
Yeah.
Like I've been checking in with you. I'm like, well, Chuck, what time is it there? I don't want to
Yeah.
guess,
Oh, dude,
but
I'm the same way, man.
I'm
I had a virtual NACA conference the last 2 weekends, and I was doing my time zone math wrong like every day. I'm like, wait, where am I? Am I going back in the future or
yeah.
back in the
It's
past?
overwhelming, and
But
I'm glad I got a chance to check in because I would hate, that would be so embarrassing to miss a show when you all you have to do is go in another room.
right,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I just got to put on a shirt and a hat.
yeah.
That was
I
my
mean,
opener.
most people used to
Go
book
ahead.
shows like 6, 9 months in advance too, and colleges are like, oh, we got a last minute show for like next week. I'm like, no, last minute show is like I can have a comedian flip on his computer now. We can go. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
last minute, and we can do it. So, but yeah,
yeah.
I kind of like that the virtual world. I don't want to travel out to anywhere else ever again. So,
It's funny to hear you say that because I remember when I first called you when this happened. You were like, "Nah, dude, we gonna wait. This
yeah,
live
well,
show is, you know."
there are people that are still
And
waiting. There are people that are still waiting. I saw Roy Wood Jr. talk about that on the Just for Laughs festival over the weekend. He's like, I ain't doing it. Like he's just waiting. But some people have more security and such. I mean, some people
yeah,
can't wait,
he has
right?
the capacity to wait.
Yeah, some people just can't wait. So I mean, we're
Yeah,
all making it work. So yeah. So all right. So what was the other gig? Did you say the other gig? Oh, the Studio C, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
all right. So
I
let's
mean,
go. Let's
really,
go one step higher. Like what's the one gig that I haven't gotten you or you haven't gotten
yeah.
yourself that you would love to get? Like what's the next like long term like I really would like this as part of my career that that would round out the resume, I guess.
I really want to reach, and I was just on the phone with a friend of mine earlier today. I want to reach about 50,000 followers so I can start getting paid for commercial ads doing comedy online because you know me, and out of all the antics I've ever done around you and stuff, like the foolishness that we see on the internet, like that comes easy to me.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it because I don't want to look, it just looks like everybody's trying too hard. But I'm like, I do this without a camera, but now I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Like people are
Yeah.
they're getting paid, and and it's garbage that you
And half of
seeing
them
out
are
there. And the
scripted.
dumb
Half of them are like weird comedy scripts, and they're led to believe that it's just improv and just like on the fly. But yeah, it's the internet's
yeah,
weird.
and it's so I gotta have a conversation. I got a friend who's in bed with Facebook, and this girl is doing numbers, and she teaches people how to do numbers like she does, and I'm trying to get the inside on it, and I'm hoping I'm able to crack this code because I just heard she helped somebody else, and this guy's doing numbers too, but I just never wanted to be a part of the audience that's, everything is about sex, and it's just easy, man. I want some good comedy. You know what I mean? So
Look at
anyway,
you being a comedy purist. Look at you.
I wouldn't say that. I just want to say, give me a good laugh. Don't make it garbage.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and I have been a little crass on stage before, but you know,
Yeah, it'll make
that
you a
was the
better comedian when you work clean, I think, in the long run. I think if you can do that, I've said that to you a million times and said it to a million other comedians. So, but yeah, man. Well,
yeah.
I think it's about time, man. That was a great time with you, man. Do you want to plug anything on the way out?
Yeah, y'all please watch Studio C and download the app. This is a BYU TV app, and look for Studio C on there. And my Instagram is Arvin Comedian. And if you want to book me, go through Chuck because I'm funny.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you plugged it. I'll like if you need a comedian out there, go to summitcomedy.com. You can book Arvin. You can book anybody else. We're available
We're
virtually.
not talking about anybody else, Chuck. We talking about me. It's my commercial.
I'm trying to give
No, but
options.
seriously, thanks for having me.
I give options to
I
everyone.
appreciate
Well,
Yeah,
Arvin,
in
thanks a
case
lot,
I'm
man.
sick.
Arvin, I
Thank
love
you.
you to death, man. I thank you for
Love
taking
you
time
too,
out of your
man.
day to come on the Check Drop, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you
Everybody will
again.
see
And
it.
my wife says we're waiting on a wedding gift from you and yours.
I was waiting. I didn't even get a Zoom link. I didn't even get your
Well,
Zoom
you
link.
know I'm bad. I'm
Yeah.
bad at that, but I
Yeah.
will send you a video. I
Mm.
was just joking about that though, but I will. I wanted you to see pictures because you don't even know what she looks like.
Yeah, I stalked her online. I found her. She's beautiful. So I found out who she was. And my wedding gift is you keeping that commission from that tip from this past weekend.
Hilarious.
So enjoy.
Have a great evening, Chuck.
Go buy a bread maker or something with it. All right, love you, man. We'll see you.
All right.
We'll see
Love you
everybody
too,
next
man.
week.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Okay. Bye.